This is the Mop-Up. We begin with a quote from Pope Leo from his sermon on Sunday, telling his parishioners, God does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war. He rejects them. He was addressing specifically you, Pete Hegseth. This is the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Congratulations to all my listeners who took to the streets Saturday for the No Kings March. You validated all our thoughts, fears, and emotions and reminded us we're not crazy. The Trump White House is, and we're not alone. They are. Again, this is the Mop-Up. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. I issue corrections. If I made a mistake, let me know in the comments section. Donald Trump's war now enters its fourth week, its second month. And objectively speaking, Operation Epic Fury is an epic foobar. But remember what Trump wanted in Minneapolis, okay? What we think is failure might be different for Donald Trump. So remember Minneapolis? Remember the Twin Cities earlier this year? Trump wanted his ICE agents to spark massive social unrest in order to justify his use of military force. Minnesota didn't give him what he wanted, and he was forced to wave the white flag and essentially pull out of Minnesota in defeat. See, Trump wants a war here at home or abroad. He'd prefer one at home. He needs a massive national emergency as the pretext for concentrating as much power as he can inside the Oval Office. If the American people won't give him the riots in the street to justify his invoking the Insurrection Act, right now he's probably thinking Iran will. So, while this war is turning into one of history's greatest military blunders, keep in mind Trump, in his pathology, also knows this thing has all the potential of snowballing completely out of control, creating social unrest throughout the world, and most importantly, here at home, with just one Iranian-inspired terrorist attack here in the United States, not even at the level of 9/11, just one. That's all he's going to need to declare the national emergency he so desperately craves. To cancel the midterms? Perhaps. We do have a crazy man for commander-in-chief. This war is against the law, domestically and internationally. It violates all legal principles and norms established in the immediate aftermath of the Nuremberg trials. Just so you don't think I'm exaggerating, because people who host these kind of shows often do. I'm not exaggerating. A consensus has coalesced overseas, especially in Europe, and in some corners here at home. It has coalesced, it is becoming received wisdom that America is losing this war, that Trump and our military are fighting an enemy they don't understand, that they totally miscalculated. And we are fighting this war alongside an ally, Israel, whose geopolitical goals diverge greatly from those of Donald Trump's. You also have to remember that while this is partly a war for oil, rare earths, aluminum, steel, food, fertilizer, and control of the shipping lanes, this is also a war for people in this country searching for that final clash of civilizations, the one that settles it once and for all. Not so deep in the bowels of the Republican Party, you are hearing Republicans like Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles, or Florida Congressman Randy Fine openly calling for Muslim citizens of our country to be deported. This deep-seated contempt and antipathy towards Islam is bubbling to the surface, even from people like Nancy Mace, who doesn't want the war, but they're still mocking Islam. And folded into this antipathy towards Islam is a segment of our government who believes in order to facilitate the return of Christ, we must wage the final battle in the Middle East and, of course, Israel. And those people, the apocalyptic Christians, include our Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who, according to witnesses, once led a group of drunken employees in a chant of, quote, "kill all Muslims." Hegseth has written, quote, he wrote this in his book, quote, "Islam is not a religion of peace, and it never has been," unquote. The name of Hegseth's book is American Crusade. His body is covered with neo-Nazi tattoos that invoke imagery and language from the Crusades, because neo-Nazis, especially in Europe, are fighting to cleanse the continent of Islam. Pete Hegseth wears the Jerusalem cross on his chest. This is the symbol of the first Crusaders. This is what they carried into battle to free the Holy Land from Islam. Deus Vult, see that on his right bicep? Deus Vult is a neo-Nazi slogan pulled from the Crusades, meaning God wills it. It was the rallying cry for Christian soldiers during the First Crusade. He has a tattoo of an early Christian monogram from the Crusaders. From the Crusade, it quotes Matthew. It reads, "I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." You can see his Arabic tattoo over there with the word kafir, which means infidel or non-believer. Non-believer of what? We know what that is. It means I don't believe in Islam. This is who is leading our soldiers, possibly, into battle. Pete Hegseth, the openly racist, thrice-married alcoholic, serial abuser of women. That's right, a serial abuser of women. Don't take my word for it. Ask his mother. She put it into writing. This is Pete Hegseth, forced to pay his accuser $50,000 to make her rape allegations go away. There is nobody more dangerous, more reckless than an alcoholic racist, abusive misogynist with untreated PTSD who's convinced he has God on his side. We just learned that Hegseth's pastor said he prayed for the death of James Tallarico, the Democratic nominee for Senate in Texas. That's Pete Hegseth's pastor. And here is Pete Hegseth at his monthly Pentagon prayer service, something he initiated in violation of the First Amendment. He wants to bring faith, he said, back to the Pentagon and end the woke persecution of Christians inside our military. This is a picture from February, and Hegseth invited Pastor Doug Wilson, that is Pastor Doug Wilson, leading a service for our soldiers. And Doug Wilson is a proud Christian nationalist. He says so. Doug Wilson's ministry is in Moscow, Idaho, which over the past couple of decades has served as the haven for an organization called the Aryan Nation. Moscow, Idaho is home. There's a haven for neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And Pastor Doug Wilson, who believes and who has said America is a Christian nation, he argues that every country is theocratic. The only question is which God it serves. God is not universal in his estimation. On Jews, he says, quote, "The Jews are a high-performance people, and so when they are bad, they are really bad, and when they are good, they are really good. But good or bad, just like the rest of us, they all need Christ." On Muslims in America, Doug said they should not be allowed to hold elective office. He said, quote, "Islam is not compatible with our cultural structure and history." He said, Islam is simply not compatible. We don't have the mechanism. God did not give us the mechanism to assimilate to an alien worship of an alien God. In Congress, a Sharia Free America caucus was officially launched in the United States House of Representatives. It was in December 2025. It was launched by Texas Congressman Keith Self and Chip Roy, both Republicans. And you're looking at one of their press conferences. Tom Emmer, just to show you that this is not a bunch of half-wits and not the fringe element of the Republican Party. Tom Emmer, the Republican Majority Whip, is a member of the Sharia Free America Caucus. That's Keith Self from Texas. In November of last year, he said on the floor of the House, quote, Islam is a culture with a patina of religion, just a patina. It's not a real religion. He went on to say, Sharia is the law of Islam. Sharia is dangerous. Western values form the basis for the founding of America, namely that rights come from our creator. Ours is a Christian-based culture. Sharia, on the other hand, is a culture of violence and domination, totally anathema to the concept of individual freedom. Also a member of the Sharia Free America Caucus is Arizona House Republican Andy Biggs, who, for reasons we've gone over, reportedly begged Trump for a pardon in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, which was also perceived by many as a religious crusade. There's Pennsylvania House Republican Scott Perry speaking at the Sharia Free America press conference. Scott Perry also reportedly begged Trump for a pardon in the immediate aftermath of January 6th. The FBI took his phone. Remember that? Also speaking at the the Free Sharia Law Caucus was at their press conference. This turd, South Carolina House Republican Ralph Norman, Talking Points memo first broke this story. The January 6th committee got its hands on text messages received by Donald Trump's White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, during and after January 6th. And this is a text. I'm going to read you a text Ralph Norman sent to Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, after 11 days after January 6th, right before Joe Biden's inauguration. This is what Ralph Norman sent to Mark Meadows. Mark, in seeing what's happening so quickly and reading about the Dominion lawsuits attempting to stop any meaningful investigation, we are at a point of no return in saving our republic. Our last hope is invoking martial law. Please urge to President to do so. When asked about this, Norman didn't deny he sent it. His only regret, he said, was he misspelled martial law. Arizona House Republican Paul Gosar is also a member of the America Free of Sharia Law Caucus. He too reportedly called Trump for a pardon after January 6th. He's a huge proponent of the Great Replacement theory. His congressional staff is lousy with followers of Nick Fuentes. And then there's Illinois House Republican Mary Miller. She's also a member of this Sharia Free America caucus. Here she is receiving an endorsement from Donald Trump back in 2022, the day after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This is now Congresswoman Mary Miller thanking Trump for picking the three judges who pushed the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade over the top. Here's Mary Miller.
President Trump, on behalf of all the MAGA patriots in America, I want to thank you for the historic victory for white life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
White life. A victory for white life. She didn't correct herself. Later, she insisted she misspoke. Freud would beg to differ. Back in 2024, Trump did very well with Muslim Americans, especially those who felt Biden was complicit in Benjamin Netanyahu's slaughter inside Gaza. It's estimated roughly 42% of Muslims ended up voting for Trump in 2024, but support for Muslims is obviously starting to slip the same way it's slipping in the Hispanic community. Speaker Mike Johnson is doing nothing to prevent the seepage of Muslim votes and support. Johnson said he might disagree with the tone of some House Republicans, but he doesn't disagree with the message. Johnson said the demand to impose Sharia law in America is a serious problem. Really? Really? And where in America are we being forced to obey Sharia law, Speaker Mike Johnson? Where is that? I guess it's probably the same place where immigrants are voting and tax cuts for the rich are juicing the economy. This is the Appeal to Heaven flag right outside the congressman's office door. That is the Speaker of the House's office, and he has an Appeal to Heaven flag right outside his door. This is a flag that was carried into the Capitol by insurrectionists on January 6. It is a symbol of the new apostolic reformation, which Johnson subscribes to. It's a belief that America is a Christian nation for Christians, and Christians must engage in spiritual warfare by seizing the 7 mountains of society, one of those mountains being government. There is the Appeal to Heaven flag fully displayed on January 6th. There's another one as they begin to storm the Capitol. You cannot separate racism, bigotry, intolerance, white Christian nationalism, the Great Replacement theory, the insurrection on January 6th from the bombing campaign in Iran. It's all part of the same strain of bigotry, intolerance, stupidity, and sexual dysfunction. You're looking at Tennessee House Republican Andy Ogles. He tweeted earlier this month, Muslims don't belong in American society. Pluralism is a lie. No qualifier. Not radical extremists who are Muslims, period. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville wrote or said, quote, Islam is not a religion, it's a cult. Islamists aren't here to assimilate, they're here to conquer. Stop worrying about offending the pearl clutchers. We've got to send them home now, or we'll become the United Caliphate of America, unquote. United States Senator Tommy Tuberville, also a notorious racist, said horrible things about black people wanting to steal your stuff. South Carolina House Republican Nancy Mace, who opposes sending troops into Iran, she won't vote for the $200 billion war supplemental yet, not yet, but she couldn't help use the killing of the Ayatollah Khamenei to taunt Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American serving in Congress, and Minnesota House Democrat Ilhan Omar. This is what Nancy Mace tweeted right after Ayatollah Khamenei was killed. My heart goes out to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib tonight, sending them thoughts and prayers. She thinks that's funny because why? Why? Well, Nancy Mace is a transphobic bigot who needs psychiatric help. But right now, she's against the war in Iran. And just for the record, the Ayatollah is not the spiritual leader for Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar. They are Muslims, but Ilhan Omar is a Sunni Muslim, and Rashida Tlaib is a Palestinian Muslim, 90% of whom are Sunni. It would help to know the difference between Sunni and Shia George W. Bush didn't. That's why he went into Iraq. Florida House. Oh, by the way, I like this. I'm not going to read it out loud, but I like the sentiment. F-ICE. That's the United States Congress. If you're not giving money to Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, if you have any money to give, don't give it to the Democratic Party. Give it to Bernie, give it to AOC, give it to Ilhan Omar, give it to Rashida Tlaib. Money is power in the Democratic Party. So, Florida House Republican, the despicable Randy Fine, well, where does it end with this pig? He says, it is time for a Muslim travel ban, radical deportations of all mainstream Muslim legal and illegal immigrants, and citizenship revocations wherever possible. Mainstream Muslims have declared war on us. The least we can do is kick them the hell out of America. When a Palestinian activist said they didn't believe dogs should be kept as pets, Randy Fine insisted Sharia law is being implemented in the United States and Muslims are trying to take away our dogs. So he tweeted, if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslim is not a difficult one. He's going to choose dogs over Muslims. Speaking of dogs, that's Florida House Republican Randy Fine's wife. Actually, that's not fair to dogs. This is somebody who shares a bed with this disgusting lowlife, Randy Fine. Mrs. Fine, far from being fine, often wears a World War II-era gas mask. She does it for two reasons. It helps her breathe in the presence of Randy Fine's sulfuric rot. Plus, the gas mask covers her hideous face, so people have no idea how Mrs. Randy Fine really looks because she has a rancid face. She's a rancid human being married to an even more rancid monster. And there's Mike Johnson wearing his eyes wide shut mask as he prepares for a weekend of Christian sinning. Let's take a look at our very straight, wink, wink. Oh, he's getting ready for an eyes wide shut weekend of Christian sinning. Here's video from when Randy Fine was a member of the Florida State House. This is Fine about to get fined. He got fined a couple $1,000s for something called ghost voting, pressing the yes button on the members, on the desks of House members who weren't there to support his bill banning boycotts of Israel. So he introduced a bill that would ban people from boycotting Israel. Some people didn't show up to vote, so Randy Fine took it upon himself right there to press the yes button. Look at this. Look at that. Look at him. Look at what a disgusting human being is. There he is. Yeah. All about voter integrity, right? You POS, it's all about voter integrity. Well, speaking of voter integrity, Donald Trump, as you know, voted last Tuesday by mail-in ballot. He said he can do it because I'm president of the United States. He votes by mail-in ballot. This is how Donald Trump wrapped up his cabinet meeting in December of last year. This is what the president of the United States said about Ilhan Omar and the Somali community in Minnesota. Quote, I don't want them in our country. I'll be honest with you. Somebody will say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. Then he goes on to say, we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. Her friends are garbage. When they come from hell and they complain and do nothing but bitch. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it, unquote. Well, that's Tommy Robinson. This is the British far-right activist, Tommy Robinson. He's one of the loudest voices in Great Britain calling for a Muslim ban, like Hegseth, like Trump, like Republicans in Congress. He believes, and he says, Islam is incompatible with Western values. Clash of civilizations. He says the problem isn't radical Islam. He says the problem is Islam. The problem is the Quran, just like Bill Maher says the same thing. Bill Maher, Mr. Liberal. They're giving him a Mark Twain Prize. Tommy Robinson says, quote, we don't have to stop extremist Islam. We don't have to stop radical Muslims. We have to stop Islam, unquote. Here is Robinson, Tommy Robinson, being welcomed to the United States State Department by U.S. State Department official Joe Rittenhouse, who called Robinson a free speech warrior. The State Department refused to say who else he met with. That is Joe Rittenhouse, who works over at the State Department. He looks like one of Kyle Rittenhouse's diseased testicles, doesn't he? And about as worthless. Unbelievable. Viktor Orbán has been the prime minister of Hungary since 2010. He, more than any other authoritarian leader in the West, serves as the template for Donald Trump's consolidation of power. Hungary right now has the patina of a democracy. It's anything but. Minorities, especially members of the LGBTQ community, and Muslims are not welcome, and they are not safe. Orbán has positioned himself as one of the leading voices against Islam, calling Europe a Christian continent. Of all the members of the EU, Orbán has been the most supportive of Putin and the most reluctant to give aid to Zelensky, because in the clash of civilization, Putin is seen by Orbán and by Republicans. Putin is seen as the great white savior, the buffer between Europe and the eastern hordes of non-Christian people of color. If you are a member of the pro-Putin wing of the Republican Party, if you are Trump, you are rooting for Putin, not Zelensky, and you're rooting for Orbán, who has close ties to Tucker Carlson, the Young Republican clubs, CPAC, he spoke at CPAC, and of course, Don Jr. He has a tough re-election scheduled for April 12th. They're doing parliamentary elections in Hungary. Right now, the polls show the opposition party more likely to win, but Orbán controls the media. And who knows how much control he has over the counting of votes. Donald Trump sent a message to the Hungarian people telling them Viktor Orbán has my total endorsement, unquote. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who knows better, broke with diplomatic norms by openly endorsing Orbán's re-election this month when he visited Hungary. Rubio said at their meeting, quote, your success is our success. J.D. Vance makes his way to Hungary on April 7th to signal to the Hungarian people Trump and America are fully behind Viktor Orbán. So what you have right now is a president, a vice president, and a secretary of state interfering in another election. Russiagate, anybody? They're just not interfering. They're endorsing an authoritarian, an anti-democracy bigot, Viktor Orbán, who openly calls for the purification of Hungary's blood by refusing to allow any more Muslims into his country. A leader who has risked getting Hungary thrown out of the EU for his not so subtle affection for and his deal making with Vladimir Putin. This is not dissimilar to Vice President J.D. Vance's visit to Munich last year, where Vance lectured German politicians about free speech and the importance of allowing the Alternative for Germany party into the coalition government, despite Germany's laws against allowing Nazi sympathizers into leadership positions. Vance's speech, delivered 10 days before Germany's big parliamentary election last year, where Alternative for Germany, a party made up of Nazi apologists, they call for not just a Muslim ban, but the repatriation of Muslims, including German citizens, like Randy Fine said. Alternative for Germany wants to round up Muslims in Germany, Muslim citizens, non-citizens, and ship these Muslims back to their country of origin. They're calling it repatriation. And our vice president, J.D. Vance, didn't officially endorse the Alternative for Germany party last year, but he said the party, which ended up coming in second, he said Alternative Germany was made up of patriots who love their country, and they're not Nazis. But they are Nazis, and J.D. Vance knows that. As we enter the second month of Trump's war on Iran, keep in mind that what you and I consider a disaster, certain people don't. And there are a lot of Americans, a lot of Republicans who see this as a clash of civilizations, and every errant Tomahawk that blows up an Iranian school, they see it as 247 dead Muslims, and they're okay with it. They see a war between civilizations. There's a general consensus that America is losing, not with a certain element, but those on the far right, that element, those who see this as the final battle, the final clash, those who delight in the killing of Muslims, those who own stock in American companies that produce natural gas and oil, who are now benefiting handsomely from the shortage, and of course those who own stock in weapons manufacturers, there is nothing but an upside to this war. It's a smashing success. This is the cover of The Economist, the headline, Advantage Iran. And there's an image of an Iranian fist squeezing the world tight. You couldn't find a more pro-capitalist magazine. And here's what The Economist wrote this week about how Trump's war is going in its cover story entitled Advantage Iran. In short, for all the power and sophistication of the military onslaught from America and Israel, Iran feels it has the upper hand over Mr. Trump. It has shown that it is more capable than America of both inflicting pain and withstanding it. Mr. Trump launched his war unforgivably without offering a strategic rationale for it. Despite operational successes and his nonsensical claim of having already changed the regime in Tehran, he is yet to win any substantive gains from the fighting. As the political costs mount, Mr. Trump will come under growing pressure. His choices are to escalate or talk. I'll get to what talking means in a second. The Economist goes on to write, any eventual deal will be worse than what could have been struck before the war began, because Mr. Trump has unwittingly strengthened the hand of hardliners and made clear the leverage they have over the Strait of Hormuz. The result is that for now, at least, the advantage lies with Iran. This is not some liberal left-wing magazine. This is The Economist. So, except for a certain type of demented, defective human being, this war is a disaster. And I don't know. It's World War III. When you look how intertwined everything is and the supply chains, this is World War III. And Trump can't bring us back from the brink. This is where I start selling prepper meals and gold. If I were smart, I could sell gold right now. Worthless gold. Okay. Hegseth and Trump say, before they started this war, Hegseth and Trump say America has lost all its wars since World War II because we fight them woke, because we fight them with one arm tied behind our backs. It's not true. We dropped more bombs on Indochina than we dropped on all the wars before that combined. We sent 500,000 troops to Vietnam. We didn't fight a woke war, and we didn't fight Vietnam with one arm tied behind our back. What they mean is we didn't drop a nuclear weapon. That's what they mean. So, U.S. Central Command, otherwise known as CENTCOM, the Pentagon divides its theaters of wars into various regions, and CENTCOM is running the war in the Middle East, not the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane. He has nothing to do with it. He's just the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is just an errand boy. Anyway, they just came out with a report bragging that since February 28th, when the bombing commenced, America, I'm not including Israel, America has hit 11,000 targets in Iran. That means missiles and bombs. Okay? So we're not fighting a woke war. Can you say that? Are we giving it everything we've got, short of sending in ground troops? Would you say we're giving it everything we've got? Yeah, because we're approaching what they call in the military Winchester. That's what they're saying. We're closing in on Winchester. The Wall Street Journal reporting yesterday that Israel has begun rationing its interceptors. Doesn't have enough, which is why more and more Iranian ballistic missiles are piercing the defense shield. Israel is closing in on Winchester. And what does Winchester mean? We're out of munitions. That's what Winchester means. I don't know why they call it Winchester, but they're saying inside the Pentagon, we're out of munitions. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, warned Trump a week before the war started, we're stretched thin. He said to Trump, there's a lot of war going on, and our military-industrial complex lacks the capacity to keep feeding it. We're running out. We're not there yet. We're approaching Winchester. I'm going to give you some numbers. I want you to assume most of these numbers are accurate, but this is from reporting in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, the Los Angeles Times, the Economist. This is what intelligence reports that get leaked and then are released by certain members of the military. So I don't know. I'm not stating this with absolute certainty, but this is what is being said in the corridors of the Pentagon. Okay? So this is a Tomahawk missile. Each one costs $3.6 million. It's an offensive weapon. It's not an interceptor. In 4 weeks, We fired 850 Tomahawks. How many do we have? We spend $1 trillion a year on defense. How many Tomahawks do we have? Well, we fired 850. That makes up 25% of our entire stock of Tomahawks. From what I've read, from what I've been told, America, the U.S. Navy, houses all our Tomahawks. We started this war with 3,100 Tomahawks. Okay. And last year's defense budget, not anticipating Donald Trump's stupidity, only allocated for the manufacturing of 57 more Tomahawk missiles. So you're thinking, hey, we're America. We spend money we don't have. What the hell? Just put another 850 on our credit card and fire away. We don't have to send troops in. Let's just whip out our credit card and just keep firing Tomahawk missiles at Iran. Problem is, it takes 2 years to build a Tomahawk missile. And you can't rush it, can't speed it up, because you're building a very sophisticated piece of machinery here. And, one mistake, somebody could get hurt, possibly killed. You don't want anybody dying from a Tomahawk missile. We're running low on Tomahawk missiles. Those are offensive weapons. Those are there to kill. And then we also have our anti-ballistic missiles, our defense missiles that knock offensive missiles out of the sky. And basically, we have Patriots and THAAD interceptors. That's the name of our top line interceptors. So there are reports that the Pentagon right now is taking Patriot and THAAD interceptors off the Ukrainian battlefield and bringing them to the Persian Gulf. These interceptors work more often than not, but we're saying they don't always work. Israel is known for its Iron Dome and David's leash and all these different ways to not. They have a 92% success rate. All you need is one missile to get through. 8% of Iran's attack drones and missiles get through. And now Israel is rationing the interceptors, which mean more are going to get through. And over the weekend, 12 American soldiers were injured when Iranian missiles pierced Saudi air defenses, striking the Prince Sultan Air Base. And the Pentagon is downplaying this. Of course they would. This is really bad. This is really bad. Reports are 2 Americans were seriously injured of the 12, and there were 10 concussions from this Iranian missile strike. The first reports were that 2 refueling jets had been destroyed. But now we're beginning to learn that Iran hit and probably destroyed an AWACS. They're called E-3 Sentry, also known as AWACS. Some of you are old enough to remember when Reagan sold AWACS to Saudi Arabia, and it was very controversial. It's a Cold War era surveillance airship, still very useful and powerful, and we were using this one in the Persian Gulf. They're the eye-in-the-sky vehicles that assist in locating incoming missiles and protecting our troops on the ground. You can't have missile defense without AWACS. Boeing doesn't make any more. They're replacing the AWACS with the E-7 Wedgetail, which costs about $700 million each, although I saw one at Costco yesterday. Anyway, it was a little cheaper. And so it costs $700 million each to make, and Boeing is behind schedule on this. Well, we had 16, we have 15 now, and it can be replaced. we can live with 15. But this is 1 month into the war. So I'm going to show you some photos that may or may not be AI. I think we're not sure. But these photos are believed to be real. These are supposedly photos of the AWACS, which was destroyed on the runway of Prince Sultan Airport in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that, if it's real, and I hope it's not, that's gone. And there are some military analysts who say this is a major blow and a tremendous success for Iran. And it's why these photos may not be real. It may be propaganda from Iran. But if they're real, and I will find out, and I think they are, I think they're real. I hope they're not. But it is a major humiliation. We spend $1 trillion a year on defense. Iran spends under $30 billion a year on defense. And that's to not only finance the Artesh and the Revolutionary Guard, but Hezbollah, the Houthis, and they also give money to Hamas. They do it all for less than $30 billion. We spend $1 trillion. So we're down to 15 AWACS. AWACS are not there to be destroyed. We have small fleets of billion-dollar aircraft that are not supposed to be destroyed. That's the strategic planning is compress everything into one beautiful piece of machinery so we don't need a large fleet. But that beautiful piece of machinery can't get destroyed. We need AWACS around the world monitoring our imaginary enemies. And AWACS should be in the air. They shouldn't be on the tarmac. They're supposed to be there 24/7, keeping constant watch on the region. And again, without AWACS, you can't provide American missile defense with the coordinates to shoot down incoming rockets. AWACS see the rockets first. Okay, so what does this have to do with Zelensky? Earlier I talked about Zelensky. It has everything to do with Vladimir Zelensky. Everything. Everything's connected. It's not a conspiracy. People say, oh, it's a conspiracy. No, we're all part of the same fabric. So if I hit you, you're hitting me. Everything's connected. It's not a conspiracy. We've built a web of interconnectedness. So it's all connected. Donald Trump, who doesn't get that's why he's an America firster and an isolationist. He thinks you can go it alone. You can't. We're all connected. Everything is connected. The economy is connected. A war in Ukraine is connected to a war in the Middle East. You clog Hormuz, the Philippines has 40 more, something like 49 more days of gasoline left. Social unrest. You clog Hormuz and you keep it clogged for another 40 days, there's going to be rioting worldwide, which may be what Donald Trump actually wants. Remember, Minnesota, Minneapolis, he wants riots. That's how you declare martial law. Okay, Zelensky. Trump has shown nothing but contempt for Zelensky, insisting Putin holds all the cards. Remember the meeting in the Oval Office last year? He said, you're losing. You don't hold the cards. Putin does. He said, you can't win. He kept saying, you can't win. Now, unlike Biden, Trump is not pouring American interceptors into Ukraine's bottomless cup of arms supply. Trump is also not rooting for Ukraine. That means over the past year, Ukraine, over the past 2 or 3 years, because remember how Mike Johnson delayed the Ukraine supplemental? It was passed, I believe, in the spring of 2024. Biden was trying to get it passed in August of 2023. And Mike Johnson just kept delaying it and delaying it, delaying it. And the more you delay, the stronger Russia and Putin get. So Trump isn't giving anything to Ukraine. He's giving a little, but not enough, because he's not rooting for Ukraine. That means over the past 3 years, Ukraine has been forced to learn how to shoot Russian missiles and Russian drones out of the sky on the cheap. Russia initially got its attack drones from Iran when the illegal invasion began in 2022 or 2023. All right, we're doing the show live, and I don't want to rack my brains. Leave a comment. I can't, now I'm bothered by it. Okay, I hate it when my memory, I should know that. I apologize. So Ukraine has had to learn how to build its own missile defense system, drone defense system, because Russia is using technology that Iran gave it for suicide drones. Iran is a very sophisticated country, and they have very sophisticated suicide drones. They are reportedly still able to manufacture about 10,000 a month underground. Where? Who knows? A year into the Ukrainian invasion, Putin paid Iran $2 billion for the rights to Iran's drone technology, and then Russian engineers began producing their drones using Iranian technology, and they began to alter the design, making them even deadlier and more efficient. This resulted in an arms race where Ukraine, which is developing its own military-industrial complex, began manufacturing drones that are equipped to shoot these new Russian attack drones out of the sky, or missiles fired from drones, or missiles launched by a jet. So Ukraine has also developed drones that don't even have to attack a missile. They can just jam, they can send drones into the air towards a missile and jam the signal, forcing that missile to go off course and into the water. Not only that, besides having this burgeoning military-industrial complex in Ukraine, they've also learned how to fight on the cheap. They've learned how to shoot missiles and drones out of the sky without using drones. They know how to get them with primitive rocket launchers or cheap missiles fired from attack jets. Okay? Meanwhile, Iran needs drones. They can manufacture 10,000 a month, but they want more drones. So Russia is supplying Iran with new and improved drones, better than the drone technology that Iran sold to Russia. And there's only one country that has become expert in shooting down Russian-made drones, and it isn't the United States, because we keep trying to sell the THAAD and Patriot interceptors because they're billions and billions of dollars. You don't want to. America isn't interested in selling on the cheap, so we never bother to learn how to do it on the cheap. So the Persian Gulf and the United States, although Trump denies this, but the Pentagon has asked Zelensky for help. Persian Gulf is asking Zelensky for help. So it turns out Trump is wrong when he said Zelensky doesn't hold the cards. Zelensky holds the cards, and it's starting to look like he may be holding more cards than Donald Trump, and here is why. Hormuz is closed, and if you can figure out a way to get it reopened without Iran being declared the victor in this war, if you can, God bless you. If you can figure out a way to open up Hormuz without massive American bloodshed, and there's, as we know from past wars, massive American bloodshed doesn't necessarily mean Hormuz reopens. Can you figure out a way that Trump can get the Iranians to open up Hormuz without a massive concession that will make Iran a way more powerful actor in the region than it was before February 28th? I don't see how. And I don't see how the military can open it up. I don't see how our military can escort tankers. So Trump obviously has a problem. He's just too stupid and delusional to know he has a problem. Saudi Arabia is turning away from Trump and the United States. They've done it before. Remember 9/11? Why do you think the Saudi princes financed 9/11? They were furious at the time about George W. Bush walking away from a deal for the Palestinians. Clinton came very close to getting a two-state solution. George W. Bush walked away from it. Supposedly, the leadership was infuriated that America had abandoned the Palestinians, and that's partly what 9/11. That's where the funding came. That's why the funding came about from Saudi princes who are Sunni, who felt an attachment to the Palestinians, 90% of whom are Sunni. So Saudi Arabia is turning away from Trump and America. Not good. We've seen what they can do before. And MBS is telling Trump, you need to commit ground troops, not Saudi troops, because Saudis can't fight. Their Air Force doesn't talk to their army. There's no way for their army to communicate with the Air Force because the kingdom is afraid they'll launch a coup. So it's America that has to bleed for Saudi Arabia, like in the first Gulf War. And Trump is reluctant to commit ground troops. He wants to posture like he's sending ground troops, but it's not a political winner. Saudi Arabia is pissed off at the United States because it buys its interceptors from us, right? They sell us oil, and then we give them money, and they return the favor by buying our weapons and our treasury bonds. They finance our debt. But the interceptors are incredibly expensive. Some of them don't work, as we saw at Prince Sultan Airport. Saudi refineries right now are getting hit by Iranian drones. And Saudi Arabia has tankers filled with oil that can't get out of the Persian Gulf because Trump can't get Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In Saudi Arabia's mind, and never forget, they were behind 9/11. They financed 9/11, not the Taliban. In Saudi Arabia's mind, Trump is supposed to be protecting us. Why? Because we've invested billions in his idiot son-in-law's investment scam. Saudi Arabia uses American dollars to sell oil. They could switch to, the yuan, the Chinese. They could destroy the dollar by selling oil using Chinese currency instead of American. They fund our debt purchasing our treasury bonds. They buy real estate in our country. They prop up our economy with petrodollars. In return, the United States military is supposed to keep Saudi Arabia and its product, petroleum, safe. And they don't feel safe. Saudi Arabia has two waterways in order to get its oil to market. Most of its oil is shipped through the Persian Gulf. That's why they call, when you think of oil, you think of the Persian Gulf, because Bahrain, Oman, Iran, Kuwait, Iraq, all the big oil-producing countries are on the shores of the Persian Gulf, and the only way they can get their oil to market is going through the Strait of Hormuz, which is shut down. Sending oil through massive pipelines is inefficient. Tankers are what move oil on the globe. So Saudi Arabia has two waterways in order to get oil to market. Most of its oil is shipped through the Persian Gulf. And right now, the Pentagon is calculating, how do we use bombs to reopen Hormuz? From what I'm reading, I don't think there are enough bombs on the planet to penetrate the mountainous region that surrounds Hormuz, where the Iranians are hiding. I mean, how many bunker busters are you going to need to find those missiles? Well, not to be a downer here, Reuters is now out with an exclusive report that 5 sources inside the American intelligence community say the Pentagon can only confirm with certainty that the United States and Israel have destroyed 1/3 of Iran's missiles, right? Every briefing we hear from Hegseth and Dan Kane, we've wiped out 90% of their missiles. Well, according to Reuters, intelligence insiders are telling Reuters that we think it's 1/3 of their missiles. Why? Iran has been preparing for this eventuality, this war, for decades. It is now believed that most of their missiles and drones are buried somewhere in the mountainous terrain, and then they're wheeled out. They're all most of them are mobile. Even their big, powerful missiles that can hit Diego Garcia are mobile, which means you can move them around and hide them. So they keep them inside the mountains where you need bunker busters to get them, and they wheel them out as needed. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm pretty certain there aren't enough bunker busters to pierce all the secret hiding places, and especially along the Strait of Hormuz. Much of the Strait of Hormuz is mountainous. You know, look at that. That's a mountainous region. Let me go in. So you know how to read a map, right? Oh, that's not the Strait of Hormuz. That's another nightmare that I'll get to in a second. Well, let me move on, because, but the mountainous regions around Hormuz, you can hide missiles. You only need short-range missiles. It's looking down on the ships of Hormuz. You can just bury them in the mountains. You take them, wheel them out. You already have the high ground. It's not good. It's not good. Well, as I said, most of Saudi Arabia's oil is shipped through the Persian Gulf, but that's completely blocked. They can still move oil through this place. That's Hormuz. Okay, that's Hormuz. Well, I'm sorry, but let me just show you here. So you see that like penile-like thing sticking out? That's Oman. And then the thing that looks like a vulva is Hormuz, the coast of Iran and Hormuz. And that's all mountains. It's all mountains. Okay. So, am I going backwards here? Okay. There we go. So most of Saudi Arabia's oil is shipped through the Persian Gulf, but that's blocked. Saudi Arabia can still move oil through the east on its border with the Red Sea. And this is the geography here. Sorry, but we have maps. So there's Saudi Arabia, okay? So look at this map. On the right is the Strait of Hormuz, and then you see Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE. They can't get their oil out unless they go through the Strait of Hormuz. And then Saudi Arabia, right? But then on the left is its western border, right? That would be the west, and it borders the Red Sea. And above the Red Sea is the Suez Canal. Europe needs the Suez Canal. All the ships carrying food, oil, fertilizer, commerce, they make it to Asia and Africa and the Middle East through the Suez Canal. They pass the Red Sea. So below Saudi Arabia on the map, you will see Yemen. And Saudi Arabia is at war with Yemen because the Houthis have taken over Yemen. They are a Shia, what they call a Shia militia group, but they're in charge of a lot of Yemen. And they are fighting a proxy war against the Sunni-dominated Saudi kingdom on behalf of Iran, which is Shia. Okay, so Iran, let me move this a little. Oh, you can't. Okay. So Iran and Saudi Arabia, they're fighting for geopolitical control of this region. The Saudi kingdom is Sunni. They are enemies of democracy. We know what Saudi Arabia is about. They are fighting for geopolitical control over this region with Iran, which isn't Sunni, it's Shia, but they're also an enemy of democracy. But one could argue there's more democracy in Iran than there is in Saudi Arabia, and one would win that argument. I think if you follow this region, there's more democracy and freedom in Iran, theocrats notwithstanding, than there is in Saudi Arabia. In fact, Iran has a rich tradition of protests. Part of the theocracy, they do allow, they crack down on them, but protests are not, it's okay to protest except when it gets, okay, anyway. But we say Iran is a regime because Saudi Arabia is America's ally and Iran isn't, which is why we bombed the Houthis last year in Yemen, because the Houthis are firing missiles at Saudi Arabia, Israel, and more importantly, take a look at the map, at ships in the Red Sea. Okay, so again, look at the map. You see Saudi Arabia, you see Yemen. To the left of Yemen is where the Red Sea ends and the Gulf of Aden begins. But in order for tankers to make it to the Gulf of Aden, they have to pass through the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. The Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, which is Arabic for gates of grief. So here's another maritime choke point. It's at the bottom of the screen. And 10% of the world's oil must pass through Bab el-Mandeb. Not as important as Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil comes from. But look at this. To the north of Bab el-Mandeb is the Suez Canal, where 30% of the world's container shipping traffic passes through. In other words, 30% of the world's container shipping must go through Bab el-Mandeb. See where I'm going with this? I should have an echo effect for Bab el-Mandeb. So why did we bomb the Houthis last year? Partly because they were firing missiles at European tankers trying to get through Bab el-Mandeb. Now, you know what's happening, right? This is World War III. I hope I'm wrong. There are new reports that Iran is considering ordering its proxies, the Houthis in Yemen, to close Bab el-Mandeb. I'm sorry. Do I have an echo here? Hang on for 1 second. I'm really sorry, but I've been depressed. Bab el-Mandeb. All right, am I back? Okay. There are now reports that Iran is considering ordering its proxies, the Houthis, to close Bab el-Mandeb. And late last week, the Houthis entered the war, firing missiles into Israel again. And the West Bank, they hit the West Bank. They hit Israeli military installations in the West Bank. And now the Houthis say, unless the United States stops bombing Iran, they will close
Bab el-Mandeb. That's not...
Hang on. They will close Bab el-Mandeb. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And if that happens, if they close Bab el-Mandeb, if that happens, a barrel of oil, currently going for about $107 a barrel, it's doubled, by the way, almost doubled since Trump started the war on February 28th. If they close Bab el-Mandeb, oil, just get ready for oil to start selling for $150 a barrel. But again, we're talking about the Suez Canal to the north. The Houthis, if they clog Bab el-Mandeb, they can cut off perhaps as much as 30% of the world's container ships. Can't pass through the Suez Canal without going through Bab el-Mandeb. So it's not just oil we're talking about here. We're talking food, furniture, clothing, medicine. In many ways, this could do, closing up Bab el-Mandeb could be more lethal than closing up the Strait of Hormuz, because you're shutting off the Suez Canal. And all it takes is one sunken ship in Bab el-Mandeb Strait to stop that sea lane dead in its undercurrents. Remember there was a clogged tanker in the Suez, I think it was 2 years ago, and I think it was like for a week, and what it did to oil prices, and everybody panicked. All it takes is the Houthis to sink one tanker in Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and nobody's going to pass through it because they can't get insurance, and nobody's going to risk it. Again, all you have to do is drop one mine in Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and no pilot will send their tanker through Bab el-Mandeb. Now, you know who knows this? Trump. Well, he knows it now. He's learning as he goes along. He didn't know it on February 28th. At his cabinet meeting last week, Trump said the problem with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, he wasn't talking about Bab el-Mandeb because nobody showed him that map yet. But he said the advantage the Iranians have in Hormuz, he says we're winning, and he's going to wrap things up. But he said Iranians have an advantage with Hormuz because he said America, if we start escorting tankers through the strait, we have to be right. This is what Trump said. We have to be right 100% of the time. He said, if we send the military in to escort tankers through Hormuz, the odds are stacked against us. This is what Trump said. He said, let's say we do a great job. We say we get 90% of the tankers through. 1% is unacceptable, unquote. This is Donald Trump talking. He says, because all it takes is one Iranian missile to pierce the hull of an oil tanker, and that's $1 billion up in smoke, unquote. So he understands what he's up against. Now he does. He knows that they sink one tanker, Hormuz is permanently closed. You can't send in a rescue crew because they have jet skis with suicide packs. They have submersibles. It just takes one, like he said, they only have to hit 1%. He didn't know this when he launched the attack on February 28th because he wouldn't have launched the attack. But on February 28th, he said he knew more than the generals who said if you do saturation bombing, Iran will close Hormuz. And when he was told that, Trump called them babies and losers, which is true. But now, Trump has no solutions. He's out of options. No matter what he does, it's bad. And he's screaming at NATO for not sending in ships to protect the Strait of Hormuz. NATO says we're not going to do it. Europe says we're not going to do it. France said this isn't our war. We told you not to do this. And we're the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We protect the North Atlantic, not the Persian Gulf. So he's got a problem here. And I don't mean to be glib, but this may be some of my last opportunities to be glib before the Trump hits the fan. So in his mind, he's thinking, I'll do what I did with the Houthis last year. I'll declare victory and walk away. But if he does that, he leaves behind a Persian Gulf controlled by Iran. He's saying, I can't get them to reopen Hormuz. We're leaving. We proved it. We decimated them. So Iran did, in fact, go nuclear, but not with a weapon, not using uranium. Turns out something just as powerful, shutting Hormuz. If Trump leaves, and he's planning to leave in 4 weeks, if he leaves with Iran still controlling Hormuz, he has transformed Iran into a regional actor beyond anybody's control. They don't need a bomb, a nuclear bomb. They have the greatest deterrent imaginable, shutting down the economy, the world economy. And if they so desire, nothing can stop them from enriching the uranium to weapons grade. It is becoming increasingly apparent that Iran's regime is not going to be toppled. What Trump and Hegseth failed to learn, because they're idiots, they are stupid and arrogant, they substitute swagger for wisdom. What they failed to learn before the invasion is the decapitation of the Iranian leadership won't destroy the institution. It's not a cult of personality. Everyone in the Iranian leadership can be replaced, and they are. Israel and the United States kill a leader, and everybody goes, that's it. It's not a cult of personality. Soleimani, General Soleimani, when Trump killed him in 2020, he had a cult of personality, but the rest of these people can be replaced. The other thing that Hegseth didn't bother to learn, and Trump didn't know, is Iran is decentralized. The missiles, the drones, the munitions, the leadership scattered, buried. So the bombing campaign doesn't look like it's going to destroy them. And now, one of the options is, and this is depressing, and this makes me really sad and angry, more and more likely, Trump has painted himself in a corner where he is being told we need to send in the Marines. The same people who told him it's one and done. 1 week. A 1 week bombing campaign, and we'll be done. Well, we're now into our second month. The same people who told him that are the same people who are telling him, we can do this. We can do this. We can send in the Marines. We can seize Karg Island. Where are you going to send the Marines? Where? And what's the goal here? The political will just isn't there. Even in Trump's own party, like Lyndon Johnson, like George Bush, Trump has found himself in a quagmire. I knew I would get to use this eventually. He found himself in a quagmire of his own making. But this time, this is different from George W. Bush in the illegal invasion of Iraq, and this is different from Lyndon Johnson after the Gulf of Tonkin, which was a lie, partially a lie. Back then, in 64 and 2003, the American people, let's do it. Not this time. We're a stupid country, but the American voter is wising up. And we've learned from our past mistakes. Only 12% of Americans, according to the latest CNN poll, support sending troops into Iran. What is he going to do to us? To us. If you can separate mothers from children, if you can put them in cages where they get one meal every 2 days, you're going to have no problem sending our men and women into battle because you effed up. This is the problem. This is the pathology. And right now, the Pentagon is drawing up plans to send 17,000 American troops into Iran. That seems to be the plan. Not Kuwaiti troops, not Saudi troops, American troops. To do what? From what I'm hearing, from what I'm reading, they're thinking we just seize the territory surrounding Hormuz. How many are going to die for that? How many? And will that succeed? Oh, we can do anything. Okay. We? You? The other idea is to send in special ops to grab Iran's uranium. And there are people, the Curtis LeMays, are saying, keep bombing, send in the 82nd Airborne and house-to-house combat in Tehran. And there's Lindsey Graham, who's saying, seize Karg Island off the coast of Iran, which produces 90% of the Islamic Republic's oil, you can maybe seize Karg Island. Holding on to it, I mean, how do you keep troops on Karg Island without sending? You got to feed them. They need things. How do you get them stuff without coming under attack? And even if you hold on to Karg, even if you're willing to spill all that blood, Karg Island is in the Persian Gulf. So you can't get that oil out. It still has to go through the Strait of Hormuz. And how do you get ships, supply ships, into the Persian Gulf after we seize Karg Island? It all has to be done from above, air support. That's pretty hard stuff. Pretty bad. Trump spent the weekend accusing NATO of being a paper tiger. That means you're strong on paper, but weak in reality. So, as we know, with Trump, every accusation is a confession. We know that. And this is what scared me. When he accused NATO of being a paper tiger, I suspect he never even heard the expression paper tiger until last week, when some of his generals told him, Mr. President, if you leave now, America will be a paper tiger to the world. That's where I think Trump learned the expression paper tiger. They said, if we leave now, you will have empowered Iran, signaled to Putin and China and Europe that while we're willing to spend money, we're not willing to spill our own blood, and we don't have as much money as we thought we had to sustain this war. And we'll be seen as a paper tiger, and paper tigers are weak and susceptible to attack. All I can tell you is you don't elect people like Trump. We should have stayed in the deal that Iran made with Obama. He was so smart, Trump. He called it the worst deal in the history of deal making. I know how to make a deal, and we'll just buy it. This is what stupidity gets you. Arrogance and stupidity. This is what swagger gets you. And I don't know how this plays out. I do know that America is going to be much weaker because of this. How much American blood are you willing to spill so Trump can save face, so he doesn't get blamed for World War III? Well, we spill American blood. Does anybody think we can control the Strait of Hormuz without massive American bloodshed? I don't think he has any good choices. Leave a comment. I mean, forget the ad hominem attacks against Donald Trump, because I do that. I don't need more about how stupid and worthless and pathological he is. What is a reasonable way out of this without massive American casualties or Iranian casualties? Because he wants to go. He thought this was a one and done. And if he leaves now, he will be signaling to the Persian Gulf, we're not going to be there for you. That Iran is in control, which means countries like Saudi Arabia will have to make other alliances. Not good to piss off Saudi Arabia. They have a lot of money. They financed 9/11. Saudi Arabia has already begun exploring options. In fact, there's one report that MBS is on the phone with Trump every day telling him to keep bombing, send troops to free up Hormuz. But as you know, in 2023, Saudi Arabia turned to China, which brokered a temporary peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. There's a part of Saudi Arabia that thinks it can coexist with Iran. If America isn't going to protect the Persian Gulf, if it can't protect the Persian Gulf, if it is a proverbial paper tiger, it is conceivable that Saudi Arabia, which attacked us on 9/11, will decide they'll no longer sell oil using the American dollar. Maybe they'll use Chinese currency. Which brings me back to Ukraine. By the way, I think they don't use Chinese currency. So leave a comment. I may be talking out my ass here. I assume they still use the U.S. dollar. If I'm wrong, I'll issue a correction. So this brings me back to Ukraine because we're all connected. You punch, when one person suffers injustice, we all suffer injustice. You punch him, you punch me. We are all connected. We're all part of, and this is the problem again with people like Hegseth and Trump, who don't understand that the world is interconnected. There's no such thing as America first, and there's no such thing as isolationism. Brings me back to Ukraine. The Persian Gulf states burned through more interceptors in 2 days this month, at the beginning of the war. They burned through more interceptors in 2 days than Ukraine used during the entire Russian invasion. Now, they don't know how to conserve. They're the they're oil producers. What do they know from conservation? Now, Trump denies this, but our Pentagon is seeking help from Volodymyr Zelensky. And now, and these are recent pictures, this is Zelensky making a deal with Persian Gulf states. They want anti-missile technology, anti-suicide drone expertise that only Ukraine has. Not only are American interceptors expensive, and sometimes they don't work, we don't have enough to sell them. Zelensky just signed 10-year defense deals with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. He will deploy 200 experts as well as sell attack drones to Persian Gulf states. And they, in turn, will supply Ukraine with the diesel that Ukraine needs, as well as money, finance, to build more weapons manufacturing plants in Ukraine, which means Ukraine is going to come out of this Middle Eastern excursion, as Donald Trump calls it, as a military powerhouse. They're building up their military industrial complex. Trump keeps insisting the non-existent peace talks with Iran are going great because he wants to leave. And it's starting to look to the Persian Gulf states that America, at least under Trump, is about to do to the Middle East what we did to Indochina. Drop a lot of bombs and then pull out, leaving them to fight among themselves. And as you know, in the Middle East, you don't need too much tinder to get them to start doing that. I just don't see a way out of this. I know Trump doesn't. There are no good options. We had one. We had an option. Don't touch anything. Leave it alone. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative. We had it. It was the deal Obama and Europe and Russia struck with Iran in 2015. They never had a nuclear weapons program. Iran never had a nuclear weapons program. Our director of national intelligence told Trump that last year, and he was told that this year, that Iran abandoned its nuclear weapons ambitions in 2003. So why was it enriching uranium up to 60%, approaching weapons grade? For the same reason Saddam Hussein, who didn't have weapons of mass destruction, wanted Iran and the United States to believe he might have weapons of mass destruction. What Iran was doing with UN inspectors is the same thing Saddam Hussein was doing with weapons inspectors, playing games, not letting them see everything. So people would say, well, we better not attack. Who knows what they've got? Iran, in this poker game, didn't want to show its hand. Obama was smart. He knew they didn't have nuclear weapons or wanted to have nuclear weapons. They were stirring up a lot of shit. Iran stirs up a lot of shit. But children like Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, think, we're going to solve this now. They think they can solve it now because they're incapable of living with a modicum of uncertainty. But there's no certainty in this world. You have to live with balancing competing interests. We had a deal. And Trump blew it up because he breaks things. Doesn't know how to do anything other than break things. Well, Trump wants to get rid of the 22nd Amendment. And he's serious about getting rid of the 22nd Amendment. He wants to run for a third term. Well, it may be time to take Obama out of mothballs. I have a lot of problems with Barack Obama, but if they want to get rid of the 22nd Amendment, Trump will be 80. Obama is what, 64, 65? Get rid of the 22nd Amendment. Have Obama run again. I don't know if he would, but as bad as we are, we don't deserve Trump. We don't deserve this. This is really bad. And the best case scenario, as I see it, is we have to negotiate with Iran. And Trump knows that negotiating with Iran, which is the best option, leaves Iran a much more powerful actor on the world stage. I mean, what are we going to do? Walk away from the negotiating table this time and say, all right, you're going to see the kind of fire and fury you've never seen, but we showed them. We dropped 11,000 bombs on Iran, and we're out. We're running out. We've depleted 25% of our Tomahawk missiles, and it's going to take 2 years to get them back online. I don't know. All I know is don't elect pieces of shit like Donald Trump for president. Don't allow pieces of shit like Pete Hegseth to become defense secretary. I'm David Feldman reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. Leave a comment. I can't remember right now because we're doing this live. I want to say Russia invaded Ukraine in 2023. So I'm going to bank on that. No, I want to say 2022. I'm going to say 2022. No, I'm going to say 2023. I can't think straight. And I'm not convinced Saudi Arabia doesn't sell oil with the yuan, the Chinese yuan. I don't think it does, but I'll find out. Thank you to Bob and Milo in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. Leave a comment. I read all your comments. Please hit the like button so I remain in your feed. What else? Share this. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I'm going to try to do my next show Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to try to do my next show Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to try. Thank you for listening to me. And I don't mean to be glib. I was kind of glib about the war because it's this is serious stuff, and if it's not good.